can be my extra ears because I'm
Okay.
just taking elbow meetings.
Maybe you could be my eyes. I need it, but I have bifocals. I can't.
Just
This meeting is being recorded.
we'll call this meeting to order and thank you for joining us for the August 20th meeting of the Humboldt County Association of Governments Board of Directors. And at this time, I'd ask for a roll call.
Chair Johnson,
Here.
Supervisor Madrone,
Present.
Mayor Sawatsky,
Here.
Mayor Burgell, Mayor White,
Here.
Councilmember Jorgensen,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Kenny,
Here.
Councilmember Orr, Pack Member Arroyo,
Here.
Pack Member Allstrand.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. And at this time, we will ask for public comment on non-agenda items. If there's an item that is not on the agenda that you'd like to make public comment on, this would be the time to do it. And seeing none, we'll move to the consent calendar. And we have two items: approval of the meeting record from July 16th and updating the Coast Central Credit Union signatories and business credit card. Is there anything anybody'd like to pull or have any questions on? Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right. We have no items removed, so we'll move to discussion items and a draft proposal regarding emergency response following the Bayside cutoff closure. Do we have
Mr.
There
Chair.
you go.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair,
Yes.
before we jump in, would it be appropriate to welcome our new executive director? This is your first meeting, I believe, in that role, and so I just thought maybe before we jump into business, we could just offer a welcome, if that's okay.
I've known him for so long, I don't look at him as new, and I'm sure that Mayor Burgell feels the same way. But I would it's nice to work with you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. I've got some things I'll say at the end during the director's report if you want to stick
Fantastic.
to business for the moment.
Great.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Welcome. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, so we have the draft proposal regarding emergency response and the Bayside cutoff. Thank you for being here.
So we'll do a staff report first, share some information with the board, and then they'll do public comment.
Wanted him to, but he waved.
Yeah, just for a couple minutes.
That's
yeah. All right, good evening, board. So This on the agenda says draft proposal, etc. Really what the staff report should say, does this work? There we go. Information regarding a citizen submitted draft proposal. So just for your information about that, but I'll make that clear in a moment. So just for context of where we're talking about and what this is all about, just bigger context, there's all of Humboldt County. This isn't going to work, huh?
In progress.
There we go. So if we zoom in into the north part of the bay, and they're just for context, a couple of our member agencies, and we zoom in around here, we've got 101, Old Arcata Road, and Bayside Cutoff, and we'll be talking about this part of Bayside Cutoff here. This is what it looked like several months ago, and then recently the crossing was closed as part of the Safety Corridor project. HCOG received a letter from Bayside resident Paul Nicholson, and I'm not going to read all of this to you. I'll just point out that primarily what the letter is about is the cutoff being closed adds minutes to response time for his analysis, and that he has a proposal to do an emergency vehicle only U-turn lane. And that is from Paul Nicholson, Bayside resident. So the staff recommendation from the staff report is not that you make any decision tonight, rather that you receive some information. Be aware that staff is working with Mr. Nicholson, and that we are communicating with Caltrans. So with all of that context, I'm going to pass it over to Jeff Pimentel, who's the project manager for the 101 corridor between Arcata and Eureka with Caltrans. And I'll leave this map up just in case it's helpful.
Jeff, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right, sorry, my internet froze there for a second. So my system cut out as Rob was starting to present the staff recommendation on the current slide, and then I didn't hear anything after that, so I'm not sure what the question was.
There is no question. I just provided context, mostly geographic context, and the letter that we received, and hoping that you can talk about the background and Caltrans's thoughts for next steps.
Yeah, okay, sounds great. So the department, Caltrans, has reviewed the letter from Paul Nicholson, and we've been meeting internally about the topic. And so I guess just, going back with regards to the Indianola undercrossing project and the reason for the closures in light of the numerous fatal and injury collisions that have occurred out there, digging into some of the information, which goes back many years. I think the safety corridor was established in 2002, so we're talking 24 years ago, since the 50 mile an hour and all the other measures that were put in place in response to the serious collisions that were occurring out there. I was able to dig up, as part of our environmental process, no doubt emergency services were consulted and discussed in light of the changes that were going to be made. There was some discussion back then. It appears that emergency services stated that while response times likely would increase due to the closures of the median crossings, that it may be an acceptable, or likely is an acceptable trade-off in light of the number of fatal and injury collisions that would likely not occur any longer, at least for the reasons that they were occurring with vehicles crossing 101 at the various median openings. However, we have reviewed Paul's letter and can acknowledge that, yes, we can see how response times would increase. And so our response to that is we plan to convene the various local emergency service agencies in the region to better understand their actions in responding to incidents in that area, so that we can better understand what the impact may be to those response times, and look at exploring potentially whether there may be some solutions to rectifying that. So I don't have any solutions at this time other than we are willing to meet with the emergency agencies and see how we could maybe partner and develop something that would address the concern of Paul's letter, and I imagine other residents in that area of the community.
That concludes our staff report, Chair.
All right, well, thank you, and I'm sorry, I thought you had motioned for the other person to come up, so I started in on that. So I apologize for preempting you. But is there any questions?
What
I
kind?
have a couple,
Okay, just a second.
Mr. Chair. Oh, thank you, John. Just out of curiosity, is the Bayside? Oh, well, I go. Is the Bayside cutoff closure, is that intended to be a permanent closure, or is it temporary during construction?
It's permanent.
Okay.
Yeah, the final changes that were just made within the last 2 weeks or so now, with the straw bales you see going across for erosion control and the removal of all the pavement, that is permanent.
And so are the emergency vehicles then using the Indianola cutoff as the new alternative?
Depends
I'm
on-
not certain. We have not met with emergency services to understand how their routes have how they've changed since we've made those closures. I mean, obviously, the closures have been communicated for quite some time now, but we have not had a conversation with them to understand how they've changed their response routes now that what we've been planning has actually taken effect in
Okay.
reality.
And just out of curiosity, assuming hypothetically that a change similar to what the resident is recommending would be contemplated, at what level up the chain would that decision ordinarily be made at?
So at this point, I've met with our executive staff team, and they're aware that we're going to be convening a meeting with emergency services. So I'm in direct communication with them. So the plan would first be to understand emergency services response routes, how they've been impacted, maybe what they desire and what they prefer. And then from there, we'd likely go back to our design team, which would be a multifaceted group of our functions internally, from design, environmental, traffic safety, traffic operations, and such, and develop solutions based on the feedback and input that we get from emergency services, along with what we've seen in the letter and maybe heard from other residents, and likely then present proposals to emergency services, and go from there. And that communication loop would also then involve coming back to the HCOG with those proposals once they're developed.
Well, thank you very much, and that seems like a reasonable approach to the issue. So thank you for those responses.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, Mayor Swatsky.
In California, is there currently any kind of a system that's already been developed for emergency services to cross intersections like this or cross highways like this?
I couldn't speak to that specifically, but our traffic safety group may have more information on that. I know that in locations further north of this location within the city of Arcata city limits, I believe that we have vegetated. Most all of us can imagine the median between Eureka and Arcata, and for the most part, it's a large ditch with a drainage at the base. But I believe we do have some areas where there is additional fill where it is not shaped as a ditch, but we have a fill of soil that's vegetated with an opportunity for emergency vehicles to get to the other side of the highway in the other direction. My understanding in speaking with some of our management team today is that historically those were put in to be a response or a method of response in a large catastrophic event, such as like a large earthquake, Cascadia event, to where part of the highway is not serviceable or not passable. And if an emergency vehicle needed to get to the other side of the highway to, say, use a ramp at one of the interchanges in the opposite direction that would be intended to be used, just to be able to access the other side of Arcata, than would be if, you know, one of the overcrossings or overpasses were not standing. But those are not really for the intent of what we're talking about here, which I would expect to be more of a regular utilized path for emergency vehicles. So, you know, something we've been talking about as well is, and again, we haven't dove into this yet, but one concern would be if the community and those members of the community that decided not to adhere to it only being for emergency vehicles and they attempted to utilize it where we were only resting on enforcement to discourage that behavior, that would be something that we wouldn't want to have out there in the corridor. But again, we haven't explored it yet, so I imagine that we'll be diving into that with our team and emergency services. And also, if we don't have a lot of internal knowledge locally, I'm sure there's a lot of use cases that we can look at statewide and, you know, even nationwide on how we might be able to apply something like that.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Yes.
I'm just trying to clarify. So are we looking for direction, or what do you need from us?
Not necessarily. I think it'd also be worthwhile hearing from the resident that submitted the letter.
Yeah.
But really what the staff report says is just FYI, we're working on this. We're working with Caltrans and we'll get back to you.
So is
Well-
Paul here today?
He is. Yep.
Great. Oh,
And we welcome any direction, but if you provide no direction, we'll proceed with coordinating with Caltrans and,
Okay.
and
thank you for that.
assisting as HCOG can.
Okay, is there any public comment on this? Yes.
That worked? Okay, thank you. I'm Paul Nicholson. I was a State Farm agent for 40 years, and I had numerous accidents at the Bayside Cutoff in Indianola. I had policyholders kill people. I've had people kill my policyholders. So I'm very much in favor of what they've done. I think it's a great idea. Arcata Fire Department, what had happened is 3 weeks before they closed it, we had a fire on Jacoby Creek Road, and I walk that every day. And one of the neighbors said, gee, I wonder what it's going to do with the response time. And I go, what do you mean? And they said, well, when that closes, it's going to add response time. So that started things. So I called Arcata Fire, and they said, well, we talked about it, and the previous administrations don't have proof, but they said that they brought it up, and nothing was done. We talked to people. They don't have proof. Let's just move on. Let's come up with something that can possibly work. So I was watching what was happening at Jacobs, and they put in a U-turn. They put in a U-turn so you can come back to Harper Motors. And I go, well, wait a minute. Why don't you put a U-turn in at Braycut? Because you don't want the cross traffic. You can't have cross traffic. It's horrible. I drive, since I live in Bayside, I drive that road all the time, and I remember going, all the time. There were so many, it needed to be closed. I have the statistics, and if you want them, I'll give them to you. There were 85 collisions over the last 10 years from CHP. And major injuries, some deaths and everything. Part of that I've been involved in many collisions. And so I had the fire department run things before you closed it. So I've got some numbers. And Chief's not here today. He's up in Hoopaw dealing with a lot of problems up there. But it technically adds 3.5 minutes to the response time because they have to go to Indianola and come back. If you turn at brake cut, then it's going to take 2.5 minutes off of that. And I'm talking about just an emergency U-turn lane. I talked to CHP about it, and CHP said that the officer I talked to said he's in favor of it because what it does is it gets the emergency vehicles off of the highway faster. Otherwise, they're going down the road and they don't pass them, and it holds traffic up. And the whole idea of having them get off quicker, it's going to cut it by about 2/3 the distance that people are going to be stacking up behind it. And when you stack up traffic coming from the signal, it could be a real massive problem. And also, if you've driven, the first time I came across that signal, I'm in the right lane and I'm going, I'm exiting? I didn't realize what was going on. They have not given you enough warning, and I think they need to improve that because people don't know it, especially people coming from out of town. So I start now in the left lane when I'm coming there, so I end up in the right lane. But there's massive confusion when we get there because they don't have it marked very well. And then if you go on the Indianola and you're coming down with the merging lane, you can't see them. You don't know what's going on until they're there because you sit up higher. So there's the visibility there. It's long. It's probably as long as they're required to have, but it doesn't give you enough visibility time for the people to see what's happening. They need to extend that a little bit further to give people more merging time because I've seen near collisions as people are coming in there and it's all backing up. So if you put a U-turn lane at brake cut, it's totally visible. They can see what's going on. They had an acceleration lane from Bayside. They took it out. That could be a deceleration lane. Get them off of the highway that much quicker. U-turn, they have plenty of room to put an acceleration lane up. And they said, since they can be seen, they said it's easy for them to get up to speed and get over. I asked them to run their trucks fully loaded with water and tell me what their speed was when they come out of Indianola. They got up to 60. So it's a possibility to do that. So I just want to let you know kind of the numbers that I've got so far. I encourage you to go look at YouTube video, Why Seconds Count. It shows you what happens. It's a 3-minute video. It shows you what happens in flash and what can happen in 3 minutes. So it's real critical. And if they're delayed 3 minutes, we could have a wildfire because they can't get there in time to handle it. It's going to add cost to Arcata Fire Department that's already stretched because they're 3 minutes behind. So it's going to increase costs for them and it's going to be devastating to them. And then if you look at CPR, every minute CPR is delayed, it's 7 to 10% higher chance of not surviving. And that 3-minute addition is real critical to life. The responses are 12 to 14 per month to the Bayside. I did find out something that I didn't tell you in the letter that I need to tell you. Not every call goes through Bayside. Some do go in front of the school, but it's limited. It's limited because of the speed humps, and it's limited because of the school. So whoever's got the call, make the decision, time of day, and everything involved in there. Because if you go by Jacoby Creek at school time, there isn't even room for people to pull off. So most of the calls will go through, we're going through the Bayside cutoff. That's not, and so I can't say that 12 to 14, which is 10 times more than the people that were getting injured or having the accidents per month are going through that intersection. I think it's less than that. I don't have those numbers, and I can't get a hold of the chief because he's in Hoopaw. So I can't tell you whether it was 25% went on Jacoby Creek in front of the school or what. I wish I had that, and he would probably be able to tell me. So CHP was real definite on the fact that they just didn't like them being on the road as much. And they said they were in favor of it, the officer I talked to, because he says he would like to be able to turn there. So now Jeff is his name? Yes, sir. I came up with this. I don't know if you can see it. This is a proposed sign I came up with that would discourage people from using it. Doesn't mean it's going to do it, but if you take a long deceleration lane and then you have a long acceleration lane, it's going to discourage them with something like a sign like this. Report it to it. And so it's something that I'm hoping that Caltrans would consider, because these emergency turn lanes are all over California. And the CHP says they're in favor of it from that standpoint, from a response time.
Sounds like Jeff has got a meeting convened with the people that make those decisions. So
Yeah,
if you can
listen.
get the information to Mr. Pimentel, he can take it to that board.
I'd love to. I'd love to. It's just getting it, throwing it out there. The public has no idea. I want the public to know that this is what's happening, because they don't realize, and I didn't realize. I've been working on this for 3 weeks, and I've put all this together in 3 weeks trying to find the information to tell you, because I was surprised myself. I had no idea. And so I don't think they knew about it or thought about it. Arcata Fire Department said they mentioned it, but they don't have proof. It doesn't matter. We know that it's increasing the amount of exposure by about 10 times with the kind of calls that are going there, and you shouldn't do something that increases it by 10 times somewhere else. And you can solve it rather easily with an acceleration, deceleration, and a U-turn. So,
Thank you.
any other questions?
No, but thank you for shining a bright light on that issue. I think
Please,
it's a
just
great.
thank you, sir. If you go look at that Y seconds count,
I did, took a look at that, yeah.
Then it's shocking.
I also was a volunteer fireman for 23 years, so
I don't need to tell you.
I know all about response times and
Yeah.
the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
But it's great, and we've got a good process. You definitely got
his
the
microphone
attention of the decision makers, and it's important that we give it all the due deliberation as we go along through the process. And
That's
so-
what we're asking for.
Yeah.
And I thank you for your time, and congratulations on your position. And Jeff, I hope that you and I can talk sometime, sir.
Yes, and I know you had called our office, I believe, in the last 24 hours. I was out of the office the day you called, so I do have a message in my inbox to get back with you. I'll give you a call tomorrow.
That's excellent, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Mayor White has a,
Oh, apparently I need more than reading glasses. I didn't recognize you. So I just wanted to thank you for the work that you've done on this. Minutes matter. And so I very much appreciate, as we said, is shining a light on this is super important. So.
Well, thank you. For 40 years, my point was going to people's houses, seeing what the problem was, making suggestions on from a liability and everything else. And so I'm retired. I'm kind of bored. And I found this, and I'm going, this could help thousands or hundreds of people, because there's 700 residents, roughly 300 households. So it's big. And so thank you.
Yeah, with 85 collisions documented by CHP.
Would you like that report?
Sure, thank you.
Because I printed it.
Great, you could
if you
leave
would
it
like it.
with Amy, and we'll.
Well, this is a pretty thick report. So it's all the collisions I got from CHP. So it'll tell you what they were, when they were. It doesn't give all the details, but it gives the names of the people. But it tells you there are 85 collisions in the last 10 years, because that's what I specifically asked for.
Thank you again for all the work that you've done
Thank
on
you.
this.
No problem. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
so it sounds like we've got the two parties together and Caltrans is working on it. And yes.
Yeah, thank you for your work. I appreciate you bringing the, he left, didn't he? At any rate, I like what's being said by Jeff about follow-up and stuff, but I have to say, trying to envision what's being discussed about saving time, it seems to me conceptually that the only way you save time is not a U-turn, but actually a left turn right onto brake it, which is what used to happen, and it's that directly crossing of both lanes that creates the hazard. So I conceptually am having a hard time imagining how a deceleration, acceleration lane with U-turn actually gets you onto brake it and saves that time. You're going to have to cross both lanes of traffic. If in fact you're saving time, that's the way it would conceptually work, it seems to me, unless I'm missing something. But again, I trust Jeff and the team to take a look at that and think about what might be possible. So just an observation.
Yep, I have full confidence in Jeff and his team and the design engineers and safety specialists, so we'll do some research and get back to you.
Chair, may I make a comment? Oh.
Okay.
Chair, may I make a quick comment?
Oh, yes.
I just happened to observe during the short period of time before the erosion control was put in, a number of people take their trucks through the very closed crossing. And that was, like four-wheeling adventure time. Just, I think, simply because they could, and old habits die hard. So I entirely trust Caltrans to work with community partners and EMS response to figure out what the best approach is. But I have absolutely no doubt that non-emergency vehicles would be using that forthwith. So I'm sure that factored into the decision of what happened there. And it truly is such a high incidence of fatalities from those T-bone collisions, et cetera, that I would I don't doubt that it was studied very carefully for many years, and those trade-offs were considered. But thank you for Caltrans for your careful consideration of it.
Okay, any other, before we move to any public comment? Nope. Well, again, it's in Caltrans is working on it. So thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome. We'll report back.
All right, so we move on to action items now. The first one, delegating authority to the executive director to execute certain documents on behalf of the board.
All right, thank you, Chair. I'm going to try this chair. It's a little difficult to sit with my back to the screen. No worries. All right, here we go. This one's pretty short and simple. So here is a copy of the staff report, and staff recommendation is to pass Resolution 2623. So the current conditions, HCOG does not currently have a resolution delegating authority to the executive director to sign routine documents on behalf of the association. We regularly receive letters or requests for letters of support, certifications, grant documents, etc. Most cases, the board has already approved a program, a project, a budget, work program that aligns with those letters, certifications, requests. And requiring those to come back to the board for signature can delay grant submissions, reimbursements, etc. So as an example, just not too long ago, HCOG received a request from the CRTP, Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities. And in this request, they are recognizing Transit Month and then sending an open letter to the governor and the gubernatorial candidates, pointing out some facts and figures about transit and expressing support for protecting and increasing transit funding. Nothing controversial there, very much in alignment with a lot of policies that HCOG supports. And so they're hoping that we will sign this letter. So this is just an example, not asking you to do anything specific with this. But if you were to sign this resolution tonight, then I could confidently sign this letter of support tomorrow. And so that's an example of what we're talking about here. So the proposal is this resolution authorizing the executive director to sign these types of documents when they're consistent with prior board actions and HCOG's adopted documents. Does not give the executive director authority to establish board policy, approve contracts or agreements that require board approval, or make significant financial commitments that have not already been authorized. And the board can revoke the delegated authority at any time. So with that, here's just a sneak peek of the resolution. And again, the staff recommendation, and we are recommending this motion here.
All right, thank you. I did note in the resolution, it does identify what can be approved and identify specifically what cannot be approved.
That's right.
So, is there any questions or comments from the board? Yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Kenny.
I'm kind of curious from maybe some of the staff who've been here the longest. Have we in fact been more or less implementing this policy, by implication with non-controversial items, or does the executive director really held off from doing anything that he or she feels might trample upon the board's discretion in general?
Given
Anybody
that
wanna-
today's my 4th day, I'm going to defer to Amy or
Yeah.
Una,
Yeah, I
who's been with
wasn't
us for
looking at
a
you.
decade.
We didn't have a specific policy like this, but yes, the executive director has been signing support letters that are, and doing things like this that are in line with HCOG's goals.
Right. So this is more like a housekeeping that would cause our regulations to come into conformance with essentially what we've been doing for a while.
Not exactly. So the ones that Amy is referring to would be things that are not necessarily of a legislative nature. We veered away from the kind of, I don't know if it would actually be called lobbying, but we veered away from putting support letters, pro or con, to pending legislation and such as that, because we didn't have a policy. When Beth was executive director, it was on our to-do list to do a like an annual policy, forget what it's called right now, a policy platform that then the executive director would have very clear policies that were like, okay, these are what we support, and the executive director can proceed without before going to the board. And as you all know, these things usually happen fast and sometimes last minute, so there's not time to get on the board agenda. So yes, the executive director definitely had direction that made sense from being consistent with the regional transportation plan and other corollary documents, but there were other things that we just did not respond to because of lack of this type of resolution.
Okay. Well, I support the resolution. I would just point out that and I'm sure our incoming and now present executive director has the professional experience and acumen to realize that, in a close case, if it's something that might be controversial or whatever, I think it should be exercised in favor of erring in caution on the side of giving it to the full board. And so, but I feel comfortable with, trusting that discretion in the executive position, so.
Supervisor Madrone.
Yeah, I support it as well, but I would make a motion to adopt this resolution with one addition, and that would be to add to the end what Una was talking about, that authorized by the board and within the guidelines of the legislative platform adopted annually by the board. We do that at the County Board of Supervisors. It definitely provides our staff with that freedom and leeway to know that, the board has already adopted this platform. This fits within that platform, even if it's legislation. Because as was mentioned, sometimes you're talking about days, really deadlines for hearings and different things. And so it's nice for the executive director, or in our case, a CAO, to be able to, and also our legislative representative in the CAO office, to be able to respond really promptly. So I would offer that motion to adopt this along with that addition of authorized by the board and within the legislative platform adopted by the board annually, if that seems appropriate.
Do we currently,
We don't have it.
do we currently have a legislative? Would that be a new thing we would have to do also?
Not a bad thing.
Supervisor Madrone, may I make a friendly modification?
Please.
Was that your motion?
That was the motion, but yes, please, what do you think?
I'll second, and then until there's a legislative platform, can it be items that are consistent with the regional transportation plan, which we do adopt and make amendments to?
That makes a
or-
lot of sense, because it may
Because-
take us some months to get that together.
Because I know the example that that Rob brought up. I have to get used to giving you a new title. Executive Director Homeland brought up is a advocacy letter, which I fully support with my transit hat here on, requesting that the outgoing governor and whoever the new incoming governor is support transit with ample funding, but it's not politically 100% neutral. I can't imagine that any of us oppose that, but it is a little bit outside of the motion that's on the screen, and recognizing that developing a legislative platform might take a little time. It just seemed like a good middle ground potentially.
I appreciate the second. I would support the amendment to the motion as suggested.
I have to say, my hearing being messed up, I couldn't hear very much of what Supervisor Arroyo said, other than supporting. You want to comment? You haven't had public comment? I am going to. I haven't got that far yet.
Yeah, usually the motion comes after public comment.
Yes, I jumped the gun. Apologies.
We're not to the point of doing anything with the motions yet. I'm still going to do public comment. Would entertain public comment if we have any. I can't see online what we have, but
Nothing.
so if there's any public comment on this item, I don't see any there or in the room. So we do have a motion with an amendment with no second yet, I suppose.
She provided second.
Okay.
Quick question
Okay.
before we proceed. Are there any concerns on the board about this?
Oh. Okay. Did you say you wanted to?
I made my comment. I just asked if there were any concerns about this for the board.
It's not hearing is not fun.
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second. We'll bring the item forward for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So we have, all right. So we'll move on to the Safe Routes to School Director Feasibility Study Report.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be giving that staff report, Stevie Luther, Senior Regional Planner. So this item is a presentation on a feasibility study for the possibility of funding a permanent Safe Routes to School Director position in Humboldt County. And just a little context on the project. This is a work product that is coming from the Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant, which was secured by HCOG in the 2023-24 grant cycle. There have been various tasks and projects associated with that. The Safe Routes to School assessment and pop-up at Fuente Nueva in Arcata, the training series that brought Dan Burden and Victor Dover and Josh Meyer here to the county, as well as the level of traffic stress. And Senior Planner Una Smith will be bringing back to the board a report on those work products and kind of wrapping up the grant that she's done so much great work on. This project is focusing on task 5 for that grant, which is the feasibility assessment for the regional Safe Routes to School. And I also want to take the opportunity to thank our partners at the Department of Health and Human Services, Healthy Communities, for their help, as well as Melanie Williams at Bikes There and RCAA staff. And another important caveat, this presentation and the basis for your action tonight, as well as the grant deliverable, is the report that is included in your staff packet. So that's what this staff report is referring to. However, with our new executive leadership and in discussion with him after he was able to review the report just this week, we would like to bring back an update to this report after making some edits. So throughout this presentation tonight, the items that are in red are items that are not included in this report that will be submitted, but would be brought back at a later time in a 2027 update. And so just why Safe Routes to School is important. It brings health and wellness to students, creating opportunities for kids to hit their daily physical activity goals. Nationally, Safe Routes to School education programs led to a 31% increase in walking and biking rates over a 5-year period. It also helps educate children about safe walking and biking and creates good connected routes where people can get around. And by way of example there, 50 years ago, 50% of K through 8 students were walking or biking to school, and today that percentage is just 11% in America. And it's also just important not only for school children, but for the whole community to be able to create safe places for everyone to walk. And an example is from the Safe Routes to School work that did infrastructure and non-infrastructure work in the Alice Burney school neighborhood. There was a 67% drop in bicycle collisions 2 years after that project. And there have been many other program successes and accomplishments over the 20 years that Safe Routes to School activities have been happening, from these suggested walking routes, from a Zane Middle School photo voice project that involves student leadership, to many hours of curriculum and staff time in schools to teach kids about safe walking and biking. And there is an Appendix C of the report, 15 pages of Safe Routes to School program accomplishments. So really a lot of work has been done. However, there is this continuity gap, which is what this report is seeking to address. And over those 20 years of program activities, they have been operated through grants, volunteers, and staff across multiple organizations. And when the grant terms end, there are programming gaps that follow, and essentially the programs come to an end. There is currently no dedicated Safe Routes to School staff at any agency. I will mention there is a Safe Routes to School task force across the county that has been keeping this work going, but as far as dedicated full-time staff, there is none. And also through this work and the National Safe Routes to School partnership, we have noticed that there are Safe Routes to School coordinators positions across the nation, over 140 nationwide. And certain states, also statewide, have Safe Routes to School coordinators. And so looking a little closer at the Safe Routes to School director position, some of the core program duties identified, it would focus primarily, as we envisioned it, on non-infrastructure, education, encouragement, programming, as well as big picture strategic leadership, communications, evaluation, and of course, grant writing and management. We also did make a distinction between, in the title of a Safe Routes to School director versus a coordinator. And that was important. The study authors, we felt like it encouraged hiring at a director level would have a certain level of gravitas and authority that person would have in communicating with schools and other partners, be able to exercise a greater degree of autonomy and leadership, and potentially down the road be able to manage staff, versus a coordinator position being more focused just on program delivery. And then also the geographic scope, the study as presented did not get into the details of which schools or which students would be served by such a position. That would be subject and still to be determined based on specific funding agreements at the technical advisory committee level. and I'll in the next slide show a little bit more about the analysis of schools. And then just to note that with the review, all of these elements would be revisited and revamped somewhat to be slightly different. So these elements would be updated in 2027. And one element that was also somewhat lacking in the report was just a focus on schools. And this is just a little bit of a quick analysis of the distribution of school districts and the number of individual schools across jurisdictions, and showing that basically the number of students is, as one would expect, concentrated around the Humboldt Bay area. So if you take the county, Eureka, Arcata, and Fortuna, that accounts for approximately 94% of school-age children. And this is important to keep in mind as we get into the details of how a regional funding agreement might play out. So that will be, again, a focus of the 2027 update. And then some more findings from the report we used based on an analysis of comparable positions across the Pacific Northwest and California. A range of $100,000 to $154,000 for this full-time director position that is inclusive of benefits and insurance. It does also include an estimate for direct costs, travel, materials, and that type of thing. For our stakeholder discussions, we just used $100,000 as a baseline of minimum to be able to achieve this position. And then we did have many conversations with stakeholders. They're not all included on this slide. This is kind of the actionable results in terms of local funding. So we did hear a verbal commitment from the county director of public works for up to $30,000, at least for 1 year, possibly on an annual recurring basis. The city of Arcata offered $25,000 a year from their engineering department. HCOG also has a certain amount of rural planning assistance money, currently hours that go to our planning staff to work on safe routes to school that could be kind of creatively applied to fund a different position. And then we also have our local transportation fund, 2% bicycle pedestrian set aside that amounts to about $5,000 per year that can be used on education and encouragement. And again, all of this is a feasibility study. These are not any set in stone funding commitments. This is kind of the potential that we've identified. And then again, for the 2027 update, we would want to have a goal to achieve full regional participation, to be able to have all of HCOG's member agencies participate at least somewhat to support this regional position. And then getting into the 5 staffing and hosting options. The first is the one that is most recommended. It is the highest sustainability to have an agency funded base position. So what was just described with agencies contributing a certain amount of money. Under that scenario, the position could be hosted at HCOG. Also, just an ATP, Active Transportation Program, funded startup that was identified as a standalone option in this report. That is competitive. The funding is still time limited. It expires after 3 years, so it doesn't really resolve the problem we're trying to solve for sustainability. In the future 2027 update, we noted that obtaining grant funds would be part of any position, so we could probably roll that up into option A and consolidate. And then also a school district housed position. There was a model in San Mateo that did that. Again, we need to evaluate that further and have additional contact with the school districts to see the feasibility of that in more detail. There is an option for a contracted nonprofit or consultant that would deliver the services, and an agency would manage the consultant. That could be less sustainable. It is contingent upon having an active contract and is not the preferred alternative. And then a separate alternative was identified as a shared regional coordinator, just kind of imagining the full regional participation. So again, we could, in a future update, combine that into option A. So the next steps recommended in the report, the first one that we can begin immediately is coordinating with the TAC. So bringing this item back to have further discussions on the governance, cost share, and scope, and also trying to drum up that more broad-based regional support. And then also working to memorialize the funding pledges that we did receive through memorandums of agreement. And that work could take place in 2027. Then we would be looking to hire eventually beginning with a half-time position with the identified local funds at this point. That work would be in 2027 or 2028. And then eventually growing the program with additional local funding or grant funding towards a full-time director position beginning in 2028 and onward. So the staff recommendation for tonight is to hear any public comment, and then we are recommending a motion to accept this feasibility report and to allow staff to submit it to Caltrans as currently written, which would satisfy the grant requirement. And then, as noted, staff would return in 2027 with an update and the changes that have been noted. So that concludes my presentation. Happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a quick question, and it might be better for Senior Planner Una because it's going way back in the archives. But there used to be, when I was on the TAC, there was a scorecard for the different schools. Does that still exist in an updated format?
Sure. I believe that is the Safe Routes to School prioritization tool that Una championed in 2012 and then was updated in 2020. And that is currently on the books as an HCOG plan. It is not updated.
All right. Well, it's a start anyways. Thank you. Mayor White.
So I thank you for that very in-depth staff report. I know that Arcata has been invested in this for some time. I did have an opportunity to attend the Fuente Nueva Safe Routes to School with Dan Bird and Josh Meyer. I guess my question is, so for example, if a particular pledge, a jurisdiction changes their mind on the amount of the pledge in the direction of an unmet funding, how would that play out for the other jurisdictions? Does that question make sense? Like, would we be on the hook for that additional amount? How would we fund that unmet amount of pledge if, for whatever reason, a jurisdiction has changed that pledge?
Right. And that would be something that would need to be memorialized in those memorandums of agreement so that the position could be sustainably funded, recognizing, of course, local budgets do change, but we would need to have a kind of group effort and have those pieces all fit together to make it work. Anything to add there?
Yeah, just coincidentally, the next item you'll hear from Senior Planner Smith, completely unrelated topic, has a very similar model where the jurisdictions make 3-year commitments altogether. And so with those 3-year commitments, then you've got a position for 3 years, at least guaranteed.
Thank you for that clarification.
Any other? Yes, Supervisor Madrone.
Well, I support the report. I appreciate the work. I appreciate the tool that was put together years ago. Blue Lake may only have 1% of the student population at 150, but from my perspective, every school district should be a priority. And it'd be nice to be able to, and I've never looked at the tool, Una. I'm sure it's wonderful, but it'd be nice to be able to have each school district have a set of projects they might want to do, because it's not just one route. You can't, students coming from all directions sometimes, right? And maybe for them to be able to prioritize, they say, here's 3 projects we have, here's our top priority. So then you're working from a list of top priorities from all the schools in the county. And while the county might have had 2,500 students, those are all 150 students per school, or 100 to 200 or something like that. And there's 15 of them out there. McKinleyville's got 4 or 5, Trinidad, Glen, Fieldbrook, et cetera. So it'd be nice if each district could somehow be getting assistance through this program to be able to move forward. At some level, this kind of stuff was being done by RCAA for years. We had a very vibrant trail development and construction. We were licensed contractors. And so we not only went out and worked with school districts and communities to identify the need, but then helped write the grants and then built them. And when you get involved at that level, every single grant can have 5 or 10% in it to help pay for this position. I mean, that's how we funded things at RCAA, was every grant put money into the pot to keep that whole thing going. And it wasn't a formal Safe Routes to School program, but we built several Safe Routes to School, like the one in Blue Lake, to get the students off of Glendale Drive coming from Glendale into Blue Lake on Blue Lake Boulevard, right, with chip trucks, log trucks. And we built a little trail into the back of the school, which the footings for the bridge are still there, but the trail got removed, and that's a sad story I won't get into tonight. It was funded by the State Coastal Conservancy, actually. And there were numerous other projects like that that fed into that system of safe routes and stuff. So I would very much like to see us thinking about how we really build in the funding to create an incredibly vibrant program. Often these schools or communities don't, it's completely volunteer to try and do one of these things, right? And so there's a lot of inertia that has to be overcome in order to actually get to a grant and get something going. So if you have this position, the stuff you're talking about here to help support that, then you got something happening. You can pull in all those volunteers and donated materials from local supply companies, et cetera. So I think it's fantastic. It's long overdue. There's some great projects out there I would love to share with you all. I've been tempted to go to the Safe Routes to Schools meetings that happen periodically, but to be honest, I just didn't have the time, and I was all volunteer. So it felt like a heavy lift to try and get in there, and there's a lot of competition for the funds that are kind of out there. Everybody's got a great idea, but frankly, I think creating a really vibrant program, which I think this is the start of, would be fantastic, because there are so many school children walking really unsafe routes. We talk about the dangers of Highway 101 and the crossovers, but these students, like on Glendale Drive and many other places, are walking in really dangerous conditions. And there's often really great alternatives to get them off the highways and into great trails and things like that. So love to talk with you all more about that, but I support what you're doing and think this is a great report, and would support a motion after we hear from public comment about how to move this forward, which I think you're just asking for support for what you have. So thank you for your work.
Any other board? Yes, Supervisor Arroyo.
Thank you, Chair. Well, one comment and then one question. This is a beautiful report, really well put together. I wanted to comment that just when we think about prioritizing funding for something new at a time when it's tough to find funds to make ends meet, I just wanted to say that Safe Routes to Schools has always been, of course, it's about the kids, but it's also an analog for safe routes for everybody, because it really does mean safe routes for people who are walking to become transit riders, to catch the bus, or seniors, people of all ages and abilities using our public rights of way. So I just think it's so valuable, because while we call it Safe Routes to Schools, it ends up being so much more than that. But I wanted to ask, in the spirit of Safe Routes to Schools, I've always, and looking at this report, it's always been a little bit conspicuous that Humboldt County Office of Education has had involvement, but perhaps like even the interview, it seems to have been referred to Eureka City Schools Transportation Department. And I'm wondering, and maybe this is a Una or a Stevie question, about whether HCOE, as our countywide Office of Education, has have they been able or willing to contribute funding? Was that question posed to them?
I did speak to a school safety officer. I think one of the challenges is there's not a real direct analog for somebody in the school district that is working on this type of community planning effort. And they referred it up the chain, and I wasn't able to pose that question to the right person. So that's where it stands currently, and we would like to take another crack at that.
Thank you. I do think that has value. I think if it gets referred to a specific school district, that has more capacity around transportation, as it seems that it kind of happened here. Eureka City Schools was asked to, take that on and spoke with Melanie, it appears. But I would assertively but respectfully put it back to HCOE as our countywide Office of Education, to not try to sort of push that to a district by district question, but make it a countywide matter. And I personally would be happy to stick my neck out and go to their board meeting or do something like that to promote, the component of transit. Or if this board wants, I'll happily speak on behalf of just Safe Routes to Schools as a whole. But I don't think it's a bad idea to push HCOE to provide some funding.
Any other questions or, yes?
I really appreciate those comments, Natalie. Supervisor Royal. There are examples where schools have proactively gotten involved in things. I would give an example of McKinleyville Middle School, who has a very dangerous situation at their entrance at Railroad Avenue on Central Avenue. And to get them from there just a block down to Eureka Natural Foods is this real safety conundrum. So they have met with Tom Matson at Public Works, and they're looking at Measure O money, which is roads money, but it includes some of these kinds of things. In fact, Supervisor Wilson made a very strong pitch to make sure that a certain portion of our Measure O money being used on roads would go to complete streets type projects, right? And so there's this re-envisioning of this 15-foot wide right-of-way between Eureka Natural Foods and the middle school at Railroad Avenue to re-envision, because there's no horses on the bridle path anymore, right? And so we can re-envision how that wide 15-foot right-of-way might be utilized and changed in a way to provide much safer passage for the school children. So that was a proactive thing being done by the superintendent of the middle school and meeting with the county and other things. So I think that, that direct contact with districts, like you were saying, is a very powerful tool. Because they sometimes have the ability to really put some time and effort into working with partners to try and do some of these things. So a lot of good examples out there.
Supervisor Madrone, if I may clarify, I agree with you. And there are some really amazing school districts. Alice Burney is one who has always been so front and center. McKinleyville Middle School, there's a number of schools that have been so proactive about this. And it falls on a teacher or a principal or a PTO leader to really champion these things. And I guess where I'm not seeing, and maybe I just don't have this information because I'm really not trying to throw them under the bus here, but I don't see that commitment on the county-wide Office of Education level that I would like to see. And it may be that they have had such active schools that they haven't sort of been pushed in that direction. But it is a lot for, I've just heard doing this work over the many years, you and I know we've both done it, that a lot of times it's like you get one champion and they go so hard and then they burn out. And it's the more holistic education, throughout the entire region that I think my point has been made, but thank you.
Mayor White.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Supervisor Arroyo. I feel like that is a very important conversation, and I appreciate you willing to facilitate and see if we can get that moving.
Thank
I think I just became the champion that I'm describing.
Any other board PAC member?
Just a point of clarification on this. We are not approving the position. We are just letting you seek grant funding to potentially fill this position. Is that correct?
The action is simply to accept this report that has been presented to you, and HCOG staff is submitting this report for a grant requirement, if
Great.
that clarifies.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And we still haven't pinned down any, the staff options that we have, so more to come.
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Is there any public comment on this item? I don't see any, but. Okay, I don't see any on there either. So we have a proposed motion here. Oh, yes.
I just have a comment, no questions. Looking at the numbers that you put, that was a great report. Thank you. And looking at the numbers, it was so disappointing to see that only 11% of kids today ride their bikes or walk to school. That's insane. And I see that every day as I'm walking into school, and the parents are rushing through to get to work and rushing through to get their kids out, and it's one kid per car. And it just, the insanity of that, it boggles the mind, especially because many of them live really very close to their home, to their schools. So I think a program like this, if we can somehow incentivize our kids being outside, the exercise, all the things that you brought forward are things that we need to thrive. And I think that somehow we miss the mark on that far too often. So I support this, and I look forward to seeing what comes from it. And then I just did want to ask one question, actually. Do we still have Ride for Reading? No. There was a picture up there of Ride for Reading when we used to take bikes from Jefferson to Alice Burney. And I think my daughter was 10 in that picture. It was so sweet. So thank you for bringing that. That's my final comment.
Okay. Mayor Sawatsky.
I move that the PAC recommend the HCOG board accept the Safe Routes to School District's feasibility study report and submit the report to Caltrans as part of the program deliverables to the Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant.
I'll second that. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Opposed? Done. We have
Thank you.
a task. And that brings us to an informational item on the Humboldt Regional Climate Action Plan draft MOU for jurisdictions and JPAs.
Okay, great. Hello, board PAC members. Happy to be here. So this is an informational item, no board action requested from us, and I believe you will all at your municipalities also be reviewing this from other staff. So, as you know, the Regional Climate Action Plan has been worked on for years, and right now the setup is that it is being led by Redwood Coast Energy Authority. Did I get that right? Redwood Coast Energy. Okay, there's so many of them who have decided to house a director position that would then have underneath a director position, the regional climate program manager, which is written actually into the regional climate action plan. The Regional Climate Action Plan also has a foundational strategy to form a regional climate committee, which would be made up of elected officials. And right now, the proposal that everyone is moving forward with is that would also be housed by Robeco's Energy Authority Board. So it is in some senses a bit of a complex formation. It does have many similar questions and characteristics of the topic that Stevie just brought up, and it brings the same kind of questions. How do we collectively do this? How does the decision making work? Today, the MOU doesn't get into that level of detail, but what it does establish is that the 7 cities and the county, which are all assumed to be signers of the Regional Climate Action Plan, and then the 4 JPAs would have not been deliberating on approving the RCAP themselves, but they would be part of this MOU as proposed because they are all very significantly involved in the actions in the Regional Climate Action Plan. If we are going to be successful in reaching the goals of the RCAP and implementing the actions, we need all of the JPAs to act as well. So the thing before you, the MOU does propose funding. It is bifurcated right now. Based on this current fiscal year, the city of Arcata and the city and the county and the city of Eureka have pledged to have money this fiscal year. And so the MOU covers that. And then for future years, it says that there would be contributions from all the signers for 3 years. And that would be proportional to population. And then just to re-clarify, if I didn't make it clear before, the position at RCEA, which is close to called the Director of Engagement and Climate Planning, that is fully funded by RCEA. They have another position of a director that was vacated by retirement, and then they have reorganized, and they would have this person fully staffed under them. And then the contributions would go to someone under that director, which would be the Regional Climate Program Manager. That person's duties would be to facilitate the Regional Climate Committee, which is the elected officials, but it is also presumed that there would be another staff level committee who would actually be doing the work to carry out everything the Regional Climate Committee of elected officials prioritizes. So that is the framework. Again, it's informational only. We are hoping to bring it back next month based on a ideal calendar that RCAA was trying to get, but it is contingent on all the other jurisdictions going through this same review, also giving it to their legal counsel, and then there is another iteration of a draft that will come to every decision-making body.
Okay. Any questions for? Yes.
So it's a percentage based on population would be the amount of money that each other jurisdiction would give. Is that how that works?
In the following, not in this fiscal
Not in
years,
this
but
one.
yes, the ones after that.
And so I know we've had lots of conversations about this, but could you remind me why other cities did not participate in this? Do you remember? Was there a reason?
To my knowledge, I don't know that there are cities who have said we are not signing on to the RCAP.
Okay.
Period.
did we just not ask everybody for money, or did the city of Eureka and
asking
Arcata
for
just
money.
volunteer?
It's a mix. It's a mix of different responses, and I was not in the room with any of these discussions. I've only heard a few anecdotes. Second party.
Yeah.
So I believe everyone was asked, but again, in the way this is set up now, as you know, the county has been working very hard. They're the leader in such that they had staff committed to this, and they were the first to adopt the RCAP. But I don't know how much, and I'm just speaking from my own personal observations and wherewithal. I don't know that the county would feel it's their responsibility to ask every other jurisdiction and go back and ask and negotiate. Not that they tried to or don't. That's like a speculative theory.
I see. It's just curious to me, considering that this is something that impacts all of us.
And with this MOU, those discussions also are must be part of this because of the exhibit in this that calls for after this fiscal year contributions from every entity.
Yes, Mayor White.
So I just wanted to get some clarification. You were talking about RCEA, but the MOU says that the Regional Climate Committee will be responsible for implementing the Regional Climate Action Plan. And I'm just curious as what kinds of decisions can that committee make on its own? And what decisions would still need to come back, say to the individual jurisdictions, say, for example, the city of Arcata, would we, for approval? Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
it does.
I guess in
The
other words, where
way-
does the committee's authority and where does the individual jurisdictions begin?
Yes. So a little bit of it would be your, for example, your city seat on the Regional Climate Committee would also be talking to this staff level committee, which is not talked about in this MOU, but we all know you're going to need staff to actually carry out the things for your own jurisdiction. So that would be one line of where the climate committee has said, okay, this is a priority. But it might be that your decision is, okay, every city should do this. And then it's really behooves each individual city to figure out how are they going to implement, how are they going to get their staff to do that. It'll also be quite different because some of them are waste management things. Some of them are for new building electrification, old building. And every city, of course, has a different kind of setting for what their cities are actually in the midst of. And then for the higher level, HCOG is kind of an example that people have used, that you have your policy advisory committee. So that might be what the Regional Climate Committee is like. And then the Regional Climate Committee, just as this PAC does, is you're all the PAC and then you reconvene just as the board. So the Regional Climate Committee would be like the PAC, and then it would reconvene to the RCEA board, which would then have the ultimate vote.
And I just wanted to piggyback on Mayor Burgell. This is so important, and I, realize that it's going to take some time for this to be implemented, the position, but I'm thrilled that we were able to, as a city, earmark money for that now and make sure that we just showing our commitment and setting precedent to the other jurisdictions. So, yeah.
Supervisor Arroyo.
Thank you. I am a little curious about the inclusion of the elected officials from the JPAs because I can't think of a JPA that's not comprised of elected officials from the same jurisdictions.
Exactly.
So would that mean that some of the jurisdictions might have two people serving on the, okay. And so the JPAs would just appoint somebody, I would assume, within their, like if,
Yes.
this,
I mean,
this
it's
entity or
yeah.
any
And you
other.
say hypothetically, I mean, actually, practically,
Practically.
there's going to be some 1 to 3 cities or 4 that will have double representation.
Yeah, there's only a couple exceptions I can think of. Like our CEA has tribal members as well, so they might appoint, someone who's not already from one of the cities.
good point,
A
yes.
tribal representative, but for the most part, it would mean that there might be. So I don't know if there's a way contemplated to kind of account for that, but hopefully they're speaking on behalf of the organization and not, not confusing the works. Not advocating like for or against their jurisdiction, being involved in certain things.
Any other questions or comments? Well,
Thank
looks
you.
like we've got a
Chair Johnson,
move.
we do
I was-
have someone from the public that's
I was-
interested in commenting, even though this is an
was
informational.
working to that.
Okay.
And it says FPC, or no, Epic. I can't hardly read it up there. If you're ready to come comment,
Thank you. Good evening, folks. My name is Matt Simmons. I'm the climate attorney at the Environmental Protection Information Center, also known as EPIC. Super excited to see the climate action plan position and sort of format moving forward. This document is long overdue, and it sets out a 2030 goal. And I swear every day we get a little bit closer to 2030, and it starts to not seem so far away. I want to thank the cities of Arcata and Eureka and the county for putting their money where their mouth is and funding the position. And I really encourage the other jurisdictions that are present here to take this back to your city councils and talk about why this position is so important. One other thing I want to note is that one of the roles of this position will be to go out looking for grant money to bring back to Humboldt to fund all of these actions that are envisioned under the climate action plan. And so, putting dollars in now might make some more money later. Thank you, and have a good rest of your night.
thank you. And I think that's the only one I saw up there. So I guess there's no action needed. It's information only. So, wow. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. Well, it is exciting to get to this point. It's long overdue, and I appreciate the cities that have stepped up as well. The more we embed incentives, financial incentives, into this plan versus just hammers, thou shalt do this, thou shalt not do that, the more we can embed incentives to do all of the things that we know are good to do for the climate, as well as our environment and our community, the more effective this particular plan is going to be. And I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity to do that. For instance, the whole concept and quantification of carbon sequestration isn't really analyzed in any detail in this plan because it's a hard thing to wrap yourself around in terms of gathering the data and all that. But as we know, we are tree rich here in Humboldt County, forest rich, and there is a tremendous amount of opportunity through incentive programs and grant programs to work with landowners, in particular the non-industrial forest landowners, which make up over half of the forest land in Humboldt County, to incentivize good forest stewardship, good forest health projects that can produce value-added products as well as jobs and those things. So I just want to put a little pin in that as we move forward, something where I will also be highlighting for the committees and other people. But I think that's an incredible opportunity, frankly, for us all to figure out how to incentivize the activities. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's move on down to by motion reconvening as the HCOG board and approving the PAC recommendations.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So there's no vote needed there. We've moved and seconded. So we come to HCOG staff and the executive director's report. Huh? I can't hear you.
We do need to vote.
Oh, well. Okay, well, we had a motion and a second. Vote to reconvene as the HCOG board and approve PAC recommendations. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. So now we'll come to the executive director's report. They left that part off of here.
Thank you, Chair Johnson and the board. Grateful to be here. Given that it's my fourth day, I don't have a lot to report this evening, other than just to maybe give you a little bit of background about myself and just mention a couple of thoughts. First, I understand the importance of HCOG and the importance of this position, taking that very seriously. Look forward to meeting with each of you. Been meeting with a lot of stakeholders and partners, so you'll be seeing an email from me soon, and I hope to meet up with each of you within the next couple of weeks. So far, I've been remarkably impressed with the staff here. Una, Amy, Stevie are superstars, and we're lucky that they're doing what they do. The county's better off for it. Been gathering a lot of info, meeting with key partners, cultivating a lot of ideas, and thinking that I'd like to explore with the board at some point in the future some strategic planning. So more about that to come. And just generally, I, as a resident of Humboldt County, resident of Eureka, raising my kids here, feel great about Humboldt County's future and really appreciate all of you and the work that you do, and look forward to working with you.
Well, thank you. And as we said before, welcome aboard.
Thanks.
Look forward to a great time.
Agreed.
Progress made.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other board member reports? Yes. Mayor White.
Yeah, I just am too excited not to share. So I recently had the opportunity to participate in the elected officials to protect America. Vice Mayor Stacey Atkins Salazar did this a couple years ago. And as part of the broader elected officials to protect America, they also have to protect the earth. And I am just thrilled that I was selected to participate. I had an opportunity to connect with elected officials, leaders across the United States, but also internationally. We were able to share ideas and experience about climate action, clean energy, environmental protection, building resilient communities. And I'm just looking forward to sharing what I've learned with our council and community, and just thinking about how some of these ideas can apply here in Arcata and Humboldt County. And one thing that really stood out to me that was important, which I think we all, it's for communities to work together on climate issues, because so many of these challenges cross jurisdictional boundaries. And as we all know, cities can accomplish so much more by working together on climate projects funding. And so I'm really happy that we're doing, finally, long time coming, our CAP program. I also heard a lot about turning climate goals into practical projects. So looking for projects that maybe provide multiple benefits at once, such as, the transportation improvements and that reduce emissions, while also improving, safety and access and quality of life. So, it's all connected, of course. So anyway, looking forward to doing more. I am just started Tuesday with a 6-week program through the University of San Francisco on climate leadership. So more to come.
Thank you. Mayor Sawatsky, did you have something before we?
I'll just say that we're making great progress on our housing element, and we're hoping to have that all wrapped up by next July. So hopefully get that done sooner rather than later.
All right. Well, Caltrans report.
Just have a couple of quick reports. We're scheduled to present the US 101 Corridor Management Plan at the August 26th McKinleyville Municipal Advisory Committee meeting. The meeting's in person with a remote option, so that will be an opportunity. And the fiscal year 27-28 Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant Program had a call for applications on Monday. So this program funds planning grants like we talked about earlier in this meeting. The applications are due on Friday, October 9th, and District 1 will be hosting 3 virtual office hours sessions where applicants can come work with us on draft applications before the application deadline. So we'll be sharing a flyer with HCOG soon. Thanks.
All right.
Jeff, I don't know if you had anything to add?
Yeah, if everyone's interested, there's a couple things I was going to mention. Just give a brief update on Eureka Slough Bridge's emergency repair. And then I know Paul Nicholson had referenced something that's been coming up with regards to the merge that is occurring over near Mid-City Motors. I was just going to give a brief update on that. With regards to the merge at Mid-City Motors, to be honest, the first time I saw it, I thought potentially that the department made a mistake, just being that it's very different than what we, I think, would expect that to function, on how that would function. In meeting with our design teams, it is actually very much intended to be that way. One of the main reasons why the merge is done that way is we had to introduce a third lane at the intersection just to reduce the queue lengths once that new traffic signal at Jacobs Avenue goes active, so that we reduce the length of the queue coming out of Eureka. But in order to get full utilization of that third lane, that needed to become, in essence, the new number 1 lane for through traffic for 101. If vehicles would only have to merge into that third lane when it opened up, only to merge back into the through lane once we no longer needed it, we would not get much utilization of that lane, just because traveling public would know that they would merge into it and they'd immediately have to merge out of it. So there would really be no incentive to go there. And then in addition to that, our Caltrans Highway Design Manual also prefers lane drops from the right side versus the left side. So those are a couple of reasons why you see it as the way it is. We've made some changes out there since we've opened it by adding merge arrows to try to bring more notification to the public that they do have to make that movement, as well as the signage that's out there. So we're monitoring how it's functioning, and we're actually currently potentially just exploring with the team if there's any other potential changes that we could make to make it a little easier for the traveling public to see that that's the way that they need to manage flow through there. We do expect that traveling public locally with local trips will come to know how that functions and position themselves as such. But there are, vehicles in a regional traffic that are not local that wouldn't have that knowledge. So just wanted to let the board and staff know that we are reviewing that and just monitoring it. So if there are any future updates, we'll bring those to you in a future board meeting. Any questions on that before I move into Eureka Slough Bridges update?
Any questions? Don't see any.
Okay. And then last point, actually, I meant to mention as well, for those of you familiar with going northbound out of Eureka, as you cross V Street there, we actually have the exact same condition occurring where you have the free right off V Street that merges with 101, combining with that lane that does force you to take the DMV exit. So if you look at that configuration, it's actually the same configuration that we have now approaching the Mid-City Harper Motors intersection. So just a little fun fact there, I suppose. But anyway, more to come on that if there are any changes. On Eureka Slough, we continue to build the temporary trestle to perform bridge repairs on Pier 7, which is the compromised pier that was noted to have a critical finding in the foundation. So the plan is to continue building the temporary trestle across the entire channel in order to facilitate repairs of the pier. Currently, our plan is to be able to complete the temporary trestle and repairs by the middle of October, but there are a lot of things in flux and new challenges each day as we navigate that emergency emergency work that is, in essence, day by day as we build that and process that with our contractors. So we'll continue to bring updates on that. We appreciate the public's patience as we understand that there is slowdowns through the areas we have traffic control, lane closures, but those repairs are needed, and we are working feverishly to get them completed with as minimal impacts as we can to the public. So we appreciate your patience on that as well.
All right, well, thank you.
That's all I have.
Yes.
I just have two questions. So it's been reported to me that the south end of Eureka, Caltrans has stopped working. Is that true? Is that a funding thing?
Is this on the current construction project that we have?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's
Complete
down
Streets
past Lithia, I believe.
In terms of, you've heard there's just a stop work on the contract as a whole?
Not on the contract. They're not working. Not stop work as far as contract language, stop work as they're not doing anything. Is that true? Not true?
I have not heard that.
Okay.
I know that we still have work to do. The latest update I had gotten was that we were going to be doing our paving work, which I believe, I'm not certain if that is completely done, but I did see portions of that at least done. The next step would then be to go in and place quite a significant amount of pedestrian and cyclist specific striping at intersections and the new bike lane.
Okay.
And then from there would be to place the vertical separator posts in the buffered area along between the number 2 lane and the bike lane. So maybe they're not, I'm not certain what you've heard, if it's just people witnessing no one's been out there.
Yes,
for a period of
that's
time.
primarily, yes.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm not certain. I know at times contractors have other jobs and are shuffling their crews around, and if they have working days remaining in their contract, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be out there every single day. But I do expect that in the coming few weeks that project is expected to be complete with those items that I just described. I am sure there will be other punch list items and minor work that continues, but I think the bulk of the project should be complete within a matter of a few weeks now.
Okay, so a few weeks. And then lastly, just an update. So Hillficker's going to be live this month, or is it next month?
And I think that's part of this project, right, Jeff?
That is.
Okay.
I had actually,
Yeah.
I hadn't gotten an update on that, but I had just seen some correspondence actually today that the signal was going to be going live within the next 24 hours. And I was out of the office yesterday, so it may be live right now or within the next day or two.
Great. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions for Jeff? Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Any other things from the board? Yes.
I just had a couple updates. So for Humboldt Transit Authority, we are excited to be having our ribbon cutting in conjunction with our builder and the city of Eureka on the transit center next week, and Earth Center that will have housing above and a really state-of-the-art transit center on the first floor. And that will be happening next Wednesday. So you'll start to see construction there, which is really exciting. Some of the site prep is already happening, but we're still going to do the golden shovel thing. And we also had an interesting and important conversation at our last meeting about how Cal Poly Humboldt funds transit in Arcata and what that partnership will look like. We were able to, thankfully, they were able to provide funding through the end of this fall semester for evening service in Arcata. The ridership is more than 70% in those evening times is more than 70% Cal Poly Humboldt students. but it's still an investment that the university is analyzing. So we're going to continue to meet with them, but there was, I would say, more robust participation in our last meeting. Thank you, Mayor White, for being there, and just a good conversation about what transit data really means. It can be tricky to look at the numbers and figure out, what they mean, and it really underscored that providing transportation is difficult and expensive, and so we are able to do it, but it's not free or cheap, and we make a big public investment in that. So we'll continue those conversations and hope that we'll be able to continue funding year-round later evening service for Arcata. But I appreciate that there were some community advocates really drawing attention to the issue as well. And I think you all got this. I did not print these for you, but I appreciate that. I think staff did. Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities is holding a talk about transit's role in democracy, which is going to be really cool. And I've had a little bit of communication with the person who's the speaker, and they sound like they just really have a lot of experience and background. So I hope you all got a flyer for it and consider going.
Yes, thank you, Supervisor Arroyo. Mayor White.
Could you confirm the time for Wednesday's ribbon cutting?
I can.
Yay.
I can. Let me just look at my calendar.
It's noon.
Give me a minute.
It is noon to 1. It's right
Yeah.
over the lunch hour.
Perfect.
I'm
Okay.
showing you on my calendar. Noon to 1.
And I'm sad that the green and gold route will be discontinued, and hoping that somehow for Valley West folks that we can revisit that, being that we are 7 miles round trip, kind of like an island out there. And I know that, when you're talking about the cost benefit analysis, it was 14% are using it, but it costs 44%, if I recall the number.
I can't remember. That meeting was, we were spending some percentages in a way that was very both helpful and unhelpful at times. But yes, so thank you for highlighting that. The green and gold route does have significantly lower ridership, although it's very meaningful for those riders. And the route does see service from a different route, but that the elimination of it will reduce the frequency of service and that reliability for folks who live in the Valley West neighborhood. And that was one of the
I'm
big
a
trade-offs.
frequent bus rider, so it goes from 15 minutes to 45 minutes. We have a lot of students out there. We have an older adult community, so, well.
And that was one of the services that Cal Poly Humboldt funds, and one of the things that we thought, well, we can kind of make some changes here without cutting all of the evening service. But I hear you.
Yeah. Thank you.
And if nothing else, we will adjourn this meeting.